Welcome, aviation brats. We've got Ryan Coyne, a supply chain expert. Ryan is the Chief of Logistics Operations for the United States Air Force. He manages a supply chain worth $17.5 billion. He has a team of 25. He oversees 4,500 aircraft and over 1 million pieces of equipment. Now eat that one for your breakfast. That is a huge supply chain. So we talk about some of his inefficiencies. We talk about some troubles. We talk about how he prepares for his day, how he stays efficient, and some of the obstacles he has to overcome. So without further ado, meet Ryan Coyne. When I saw a $17.5 billion supply chain, you definitely know what's going on.
It's pretty crazy. I mean, are you a former military guy or?
Actually, I am not, but the owner is and actually my father is a Vietnam vet.
Right on. So there's two sides to it. There's the wholesale side and the basically the buyers.
Right.
And the buyers and the fixers, and they're in one side of kind of the Air Force spectrum of parts, and they're probably, I don't know. I looked at you guys' website, and you guys do business with it looks like you guys do business with the Air Force, and
yes.
So the wholesale guys are the guys based out of Tinker Air Force Base and the different depots around the country, and they're the actual guys who throw out the contracts and say, hey, we need part X, and whoever company bids on it, they buy that particular part. And,
it's a complicated process.
Yeah,
it's because we don't sell to you guys at all. We don't deal to here domestically at all.
Really?
No, we don't.
Yeah, it's interesting. And then from my standpoint, so you've got the wholesale guys who do they're the buyers,
right?
Two different chains of command, and then you've got my team. I'm the director of logistics, and we no kidding are like the we run the retail side, so we make sure that once those parts are bought, there's enough on the shelf. We take care of all the customer complaints. We move parts around the world based on demand patterns. All kinds of the customer facing stuff. I also deal, and I have transportation guys that work for me who work with FedEx and UPS and all. It's pretty interesting.
I mean, there's a lot going on.
There is.
So tell me, what's your background? Where do you come from, or has this naturally progressed? As your Air Force role, just over time.
Yeah, definitely. I'm a core logistics readiness officer at the lieutenant colonel level.
Okay.
Been doing this for about 19 and a half years.
Wow.
And I started out as a young supply officer, and I've done all kinds of different commodities. Most of my career has been in petroleum management.
Okay.
Vehicles, aerial port management. But my last assignment here, I've been lucky enough to be the director for they put it all in one base where we direct the entire Air Force retail supply chain.
That's crazy.
So I'm going on my third year of doing this, but I am a core supply, aircraft parts, aircraft fuel, air cargo, that kind of guy. Just your regular blue collar.
Yeah.
There's not. It's kind of strange to put blue collar and officer together, but.
I know exactly what you mean, because it's aviation is in my blood too. I mean, once you get the jet fuel in your blood, you can't get it out.
So yeah, I enjoy it, and I was overseas prior to this assignment where I was a commander over there for vehicles and actually maintenance. So I did vehicles, and before that I was a material maintenance squadron commander. Had a little bit of aircraft maintenance guys in my squadron, mostly on the tanks and the adapters that the different fighters use to hold missiles underneath the wings and the fuel tanks underneath the wings.
Right.
Yeah, I dealt with the aircraft maintenance, but I don't know. It's what the Air Force deals you, and this is what the military dealt me back when I was 22 years old as a young second lieutenant out of college. And
Do you plan on obviously making this a lifelong? Because even with the experience you experience now, I mean, it has to be comparable to the commercial sector because it's completely different, and your volume is so much larger than normal airlines. And that's what I wrote in your bio is it's $17.5 billion isn't anything small. I mean, the typical airline is in the millions, the hundreds of millions, and maybe small billions of dollars, but not 17.5. That is more than most countries' GDP.
well, I'll explain where I got that number. So it's let me make sure I get it on our website because I want to be truth in our advertising. So real quick here, so I'll tell you where that comes from.
But it is, it doesn't shock me because the Air Force is huge. The 4,500 aircraft is reasonable. The $1 million or the million of components and equipment makes sense. I mean, we have a huge Air Force.
Absolutely. So here's so in this wing, the supply, we deal with three major commodities. We deal with the aircraft parts. We deal in petroleum, the entire petroleum supply chain for the U.S. Air Force, and we deal with equipment items and parts for vehicles. The vehicles, there's still a lot of work to be done on that, but mostly aircraft parts and petroleum where those big dollars come from. So
right.
I'm looking at just from so let me make sure I get this right. Probably 8 to 9 billion of that is in aircraft parts.
Wow.
Yeah, and then
so
the rest
half,
and then fuel. Fuels other than personnel in the Air Force, and it's common knowledge on Google. It's a huge expense for any organization.
Yeah. Airline, it doesn't. Air Force, it doesn't matter. It's the same.
Huge.
We all, depending on our region, we all have to buy fuel. Not getting away from it.
We're pushing about, I don't know, 5.5 million customer transactions a month.
Wow, and that's all internal transactions. So that's different depots, that's different bases. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. It's let's just say you got a C-130 because it looks like you guys on your website deal with C-130s.
Right.
You say you got a C-130 sitting at a ramp over in Japan. And it's supporting operations in Japan. Well, there's a little retail supply point there that has parts on the shelf that are available for that C-130, and we make sure that the parts are on the shelf when they're needed based on the demand patterns for that particular C-130, the flying hours, because every C-130 location is different.
So now, is this all intranet? Because obviously, it's and theoretically, it's easy to say it's all based on demand patterns and flight hours, but that's over in Okinawa. That's where the base is. I'm sure you're possibly talking about in Japan. Now, is that stuff reported internally, or is that like handwritten and sent to you guys? How does that process go about?
If you think like Amazon.com.
Okay. Yeah.
How a customer, you and I, we go on Amazon and we say, hey, we want with these pair of running shoes.
Right.
And sometimes, on Amazon, they'll let you put in there you'd like to have running shoes sent to you once a month at particular intervals based on how much you use those running shoes.
Right.
So, just like that, a maintenance guy, an aircraft maintainer goes online to the Air Force system and they say, hey, I need 5 GPS units. And, after so many times of that happening, it creates a demand pattern. We know that we need to have so many GPS units on the shelf because of this, because the C-130s over there go through this many GPS units in a year.
Right.
We make sure, and it's really cool. We here in this wing, because the Air Force went to a consolidated portion, we can grab something off the shelf in in Japan, and we can move it to Georgia to another C-130 unit, and we just do it. We don't have to ask the retail manager.
Oh, that's nice.
So it gives you it makes it a fair playing field for the guys out there.
So you have control over all of the inventory. So if it's in Japan, the retail manager is just really just there for consumption purposes, but the inventory over there you can move back and forth.
Yep, absolutely.
Wow. Yeah. It seems so simple. It seems so straightforward, but obviously the supply chain is a lot more complicated, especially when you start dealing with vendors and suppliers and contracts and bidding. How do you stay organized with so much volume?
Well,
You start laughing when I say that.
I'm glad that I am not on the contractor side and dealing with the buying and we have good folks in the Air Force who develop those relationships with the companies out there and the contracts and do all the bidding process and keep it all on the up and up. I deal mostly with the interface with the actual end user, the guy turning the wrench on the flight line.
Got it.
Those kind of things, dealing with a maintenance group commander at the 05 or 06 level coming back and saying, hey, Coyne, I'm out here trying to fix C-130s and all you have on our shelf is 2 of these GPS units when we've been using 5 the past year.
Mm-hmm.
And then hey, Coyne, we're about to go fly this particular mission to support an emerging requirement. I need to get 10 more on the shelf because I know we're going to go through them because of the weather we're going to be flying through.
Right.
Right. But so in my position, I'm lucky enough to be the director of logistics, but the way it's broken, I have a staff of 25, awesome, sharp folks. And then we have 3 groups underneath us of, 400 or 500 folks apiece. And one group or one entity deals with fuel. One entity deals with all your heavy.
Wow. Okay.
C5, C-130s, all those kind of things. And another group deals with your fighter aircraft.
So you're essentially working with, let's say on the private side, the managers.
Yes.
For certain sectors. Got it. Okay. And essentially, so you deal with the end users, the retail section. So really, man, you're in sales.
I am. I'm in sales, but the nice thing is they have to buy from us. So there's no.
Right. Yeah. It's free for them.
Yes. I'm selling, but I know they're going to buy from us, so it really doesn't matter. And I mean, it does, but it's really
a good point.
It's really out of sense of, I guess, service because you want because the position of those guys out in the field where, when I came in as a young officer, if supply told me I was going to get a wheel and tire combination on day X, it never happened. It was always screwed up.
You're right.
And we totally would go pull one off another aircraft because we didn't believe the supply chain was going to help.
Oh man, that's terrible.
That's what I joined there. But now we've done a really, really good job of, when a young lieutenant or captain or master sergeant out there says they need this particular item to get their aircraft back in the air, and we tell them we're going to get it there on day X between these hours, we're pretty good.
Yeah.
It's almost Amazon like.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty good because if not, they're going to go can off another aircraft, yank it off of something else.
Right. Well, and then that's going to be another problem.
Yeah, then it's going to generate another demand. So we're screwed either way.
Yeah, and it's crazy how common that problem is from when you were young and coming in is the communication from, let's call it a supplier because that's what you're supplying the retail side, but even on the commercial side of things where we deal with both, it's communication of suppliers and end user, whoever's using the end product, and a lot of the times is the communication is absolutely terrible, and it creates so many problems, and I can only imagine how much money is wasted just by poor communication.
Yeah, I guess, but it's getting much better. And what really works for us, and I work directly for our wing commander. She's an Air Force 06, and she's the head supply manager, head retail supply manager for the Air Force. And what makes it so nice now is we have an enterprise view. So our team can see all the parts that are available throughout the world sitting on Air Force shelves. We know the demand patterns. We know when they're being issued out to the maintainer, when they're turned back in.
Wow.
calculated the order and ship times, that it takes based on different carriers between locations. We know that if you go into Qatar, this is going to happen. If you're flying into Africa, these are the lead times for the supply chain.
Wow.
So gotten to a point where I literally when I was a young lieutenant, all I was worried about was my little tiny kingdom and making sure my little patch of aircraft had the parts they need.
Right.
Now it's so much better because, and I would think Delta and United and all their, I mean, I don't know, I don't deal much with them, but I imagine they have a similar type enterprise view of their supply chains. So, Dulles isn't getting better support than Chicago or something like that.
You would be surprised because obviously you guys have spent an incredible amount of money on your enterprise, your technology, clearly.
Yeah.
But where the airlines have difficulty is the United States Air Force will stock whatever they want, whenever they want it, because obviously we have a budget, but the budget is a lot more drastic than a typical airlines. Yeah. So where you prefer to stock based on demand, airlines, they still need to figure out their demand, but they don't want to stock because they don't want $2 to $3 million or sometimes $20 million worth of assets just sitting on the shelf without any consumption. So they're trying to reduce the inventory load so they can regain some of the capital so they can spend it on marketing, so they can spend it on customer service and investing it back into the company and not on the shelf. So that's the problem. And then when they go out and buy a component, it's all based on what does the aftermarket have. So whereas if the Air Force buys, they go through a bidding process. It's a slower process, so more than likely you guys aren't going to typically be urgent too many times because you have inventory. The airlines will become AOG, aircraft on ground, and they're going to need this component in 1 to 2 days, and if they don't have it, they have to go out to the supply chain. Now, China might have it, the United States might have it. It becomes a little bit more of a supply chain bottleneck.
Yeah, I can understand. When we go, our term for AOG is a MICAP.
Okay.
And mission capable aircraft. And
right.
Our view of that in the Air Force supply chain, because my team we manage the MICAPs, and it's the same exact thing, is we have failed. So
right,
if we have a unit go out for a MICAP because or an AOG like you say, that's because we got it wrong. And
that's so true. Yeah.
And the funny thing is, like that post I put is, and more of these MICAPs are caused by obsolescence. So
yes. Mm-hmm.
We'll have a part that goes MICAP, and we'll be like, where did this come from? And the schematics are back from the 1970s, and the manufacturer's not even in business anymore, and that's where we're like, oh no.
Yeah, that's a problem. But then, so do you guys look? It would be different for you guys because you would have salvageable, aircraft, in storage in the desert, wherever. So do you guys go and try to find the aircraft and try to remove it?
Yep, all the time out there in Arizona at the AMARG.
Yeah,
the bone out there. That's one of the options. I know that our counterparts over on the wholesale side try to do a really, really good job of putting out, available contracts for small companies that might be able to produce it.
Right.
Maybe, and sometimes we try to produce it internally with our, not internally in my unit, but internally on the wholesale side, based on the expertise that are there. I mean, there's all kinds of different things. We've always been able to overcome it. Because I think as aircraft get older and older and older, it's just a harder and harder.
Mm-hmm. That's a risk you take.
Yeah, you got 135s flying out there that are old Boeing 707s. And all kinds of stuff. So I don't know. It seems to work. It's interesting. Interesting work. I'm coming to the end of my time. I hit 20 years next July.
Wow.
I am lucky enough to be able to transition from active duty and go in and do something different.
Very cool. Very cool. What's your plans?
I have at this time. I know I want to do something in logistics, and I want to do something parts and aircraft and that type of thing. I just turned 41, so I still got a lot of.
Man, you're still young. You got plenty of time.
Still got a lot of work left in me.
Yeah, you do.
So I hope to do something in the I don't know, the range, something to do with aircraft and something to do with supply chain and that type of thing. I guess I've been training for it for 20 years. So
Yeah. No, and it's a growing industry. So if you go into the commercial sector, there's so many different areas you can go, and you can go into freight forwarding and logistics. Obviously, the airlines. There's military companies, the OEMs. It's just a huge freaking industry.
it's even you're right, and even on the civil servant side, on the federal civilian employee side, it's a
Hmm.
huge. Most of the command that I'm part of, the military is very much a minority, whereas the civilians,
Oh
civil
wow.
servants are take up. They're most of the population because it's such an area where you need a lot of long term expertise.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and don't you find leading, because you lead a team of 25. That's going to be crucial in the private sector. So, how do you lead the team of 25? Because obviously they have a lot of reports under them. What's your strategy to get people engaged into what they're doing to have a bigger purpose?
So I always kind of look back to when I was lucky enough to run track in college and
What'd you run?
cross country down at Valdosta State in
Oh,
southern
nice. Oh, cool.
Georgia, at a little Division II school, but north of you guys in Sanford,
Yeah.
and ran for Valdosta State and played high school sports at Valdosta High. And I kind of always looked at my coaches as the guys who kind of put out the best leadership skills. So
Hmm.
everybody thinks the military and officers, all we do is give orders all day, and we order planes in to pick us up. And sometimes when I talk to my civilian buddies, they're like, "Oh yeah, you're giving orders." Where no, I've never given an order in my entire career, and I've been a commander 3 times.
Wow.
It's more of a collaboration, a coaching effort, constant huddles, making sure we have a consensus before we move forward. My guys who I'm lucky enough to work with, they're super smart. They know what they're doing. So usually we come to a consensus, and I always remind them, hey, I'm the responsible officer. So if something goes wrong, it's on my head. So I actually ask them to give their best.
Right.
But
Yeah.
and then it, nobody's no, and especially in my area, with the 25, nobody's really getting a bonus at the end of the year, or it really doesn't work that way on the federal side. Or
Right.
so it's really, they're doing it out of, they're all getting paid fairly well, but at the same time, they're doing it out of just trying to do a good job for those guys who are out flying in Iraq and Afghanistan, and
Right.
so it's. I'm lucky that I have a good team that's supportive, but I think you have to take you definitely have to take a coaching, collaborative, team building, and you have to be very calm, because definitely don't want anybody not knowing where they stand when they come talk to you.
Right. Because do you find that the coaching, because that seems not rare, but I agree. I think coaching and being collaborative is crucial, because that's where people learn. And obviously, the people that report to you is they don't have the extrinsic motivation of bonuses, so they're doing it for the purpose of the team, making sure people are safe, making sure the fleet stays in the air. So do you find maybe other people are less successful that don't approach the co-thing methodology like you?
Well, I think you lose trust, and people
Yeah.
do work because they have to, not because they want to. Usually, you
Hmm.
try to impress your coach,
Right.
but
Yeah.
when you have a boss who's just pointing at you to get things done, and then you just do it because you have to, not because you're trying to do the right thing. And it's interesting. Here in St. Louis, we've got a huge Boeing presence, and
Yeah.
so we even have Boeing dispersed with us throughout our hallways here. Because they
Oh
deal with
man.
the C-17.
Right.
So there's plenty of competition for these experts who work with me to go find other.
Oh, right. So somebody else could pull them if they don't like where they're at. They're going somewhere else.
You got to keep and then some of them, like my one of my leading civilians. I mean, she started out as a forklift driver, and a long time ago when she graduated college as a young federal civil servant, and now she's one of my lead supply chain experts, and at the GS-13, which is a lieutenant colonel equivalent, and just knows the business.
Hmm.
So you gotta. I don't want to lose that. So you got to constantly cultivate
Right.
that. And then I also think you got to give people a chance to learn skills. So if they do want to leave and they do want to go do something else, we've prepared them to go do it.
Right. So they're
Like,
of value somewhere else. So there's
yeah,
somebody's not picking up and trying to pick up the pieces.
absolutely. Our wing was gracious enough that we're sending a large class of folks through the APEX, the
Okay.
supply chain management certification program that APEX puts out.
Right.
And so, I mean, that's a private sector certification that you don't need on active duty, but our boss understood the fact that we got to make people competitive. So if they do need to go do something else, then we help them out. We make them competitive.
Actually, we just brought on a purchasing and a supply chain lead as well, and that's one of his certifications is from Apex. So that's maybe not the certification, but the course that they go through.
Yep, it's a good one, and it's we have that here at Apex, and then St. Louis University has a really robust 6-month certification program that folks from this base, they have a good partnership with Scott Air Force Base, and I just went through it, and it was awesome. Boeing comes and talks to us, Monsanto, all the different big bases, and so that it's really cool. So I don't know. I think if you just treat people with calm and dignity and try to look out for them, they're going to look out for you.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one of the things I've had to learn, obviously, especially in the managerial role is to tone it down. You know, even when it comes to vendors and working with people that maybe shouldn't be your vendor or your supplier, because there's a lot of quacks out there, is the muscle isn't going to get you as far as you think it's going to get you, is keeping that calm approach, talking to people like they're human, and just resolving problems. It gets you a lot further than being loud, being aggressive, and trying to twist somebody's arm.
I find a good trick that I use with like younger airmen or younger recruits who, as my previous job, I had 400 mechanics and vehicle operators, all between a lot of them were 18, 19, 20-year-olds. And so, and this was in Germany where the drinking age is 18. So
man. Yeah.
Distractions for these guys. But I found even with the young guys, asking a lot of questions and just asking them, and then they usually figure out how to get to the right answer.
Right.
And I that was a trick I would use with the young, 1-2 stripers who are just joining the service, who come up in a different world than I have.
Right.
I would just ask them, hey, what do you think about that? How's this working out for you?
Yeah.
Do you think that it'll work it here in the office? That kind of stuff. It seemed to work. Usually they figure it out on their own.
I mean, it's such a simple strategy that's not used. It's just asking those questions, and they get to learn on their own too. It's not you hovering over their shoulder and telling them what to do. It's you ask them the question, and they naturally have to think about it.
I agree. That and protecting their time, because there's nothing more important to a military guy or girl than their time. They're not getting a bonus. We're not. You get what you get, but when you protect someone's time so they have the ability to enjoy a little bit of extra time away from the office, that's like a bonus.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. So that is a motivator.
Huge motivator, because
wow.
You can be a young airman. And my last job was very operational before this, where we would work 12-hour shifts to make sure that snow removal equipment was working appropriately for the flight line there at Ramstein Air Force Base. That's where I was at throughout the winter. Just crazy, working on Caterpillar, snow removal, Oshkosh, all these massive machines. It'd be 12, 13, 14-hour days. But the minute you could give time back to these guys,
oh man,
they'll a Friday at 12 o'clock, hey guys, you've been working 13, 14-hour shifts. Let's break half day and just enjoy the weekend. That's cool. A bonus.
Yeah. They can spend time, especially in the military, is in certain degrees, and maybe not on the supply side, but people have to deploy. They go to different bases. They have to go to different cities. So being with their family and their friends is, very, very important.
Huge. But that's what I do, and that's what.
That's fantastic. Well, I appreciate the time you taken out. I know you're at lunch.
Yeah, I'm just in here at my guys' lab. I have one of these stand-up desks.
Which one do you use? Because I'm on one too. I'm sitting right now, but which one?
I got the Vera desk.
Yeah, that's the one I have. Yep. Right
You know,
here.
the one in Men's Journal.
What was that?
And like the advertisements all the time in Men's Journal. And
It's a
Men's
good one. It goes up and down.
Yeah. I got it here in my office, and all my guys crack up at me because, some of the folks, they sit on those little energy balls or medicine balls, and
Yeah.
I have my little stand-up desk, and it seems to work.
That's all. It does work because I tell you, sitting down. I preach that on my personal website too. Is you got to stay healthy, man. Because if you stay healthy, it's going to keep your mind healthy. Standing up and down all day is a good way to do it. We have those the exercise balls here as well. So we kind of try to incorporate that as much as possible.
Right on. And you guys are in Sanford, Florida?
Yep, we're right outside of Sanford Orlando International Airport, and then we're about 40 minutes away from Orlando International.
It's funny because we're here at Scott Air Force Base, and right down the street is this tiny little town called Mascoutah, and it has this, and there's a reason why I'm saying there's a flight line there that has only one flight a week or two flights, and it's Allegiant Airlines.
Yeah,
and they fly from here to down there to Sanford direct on Thursday and come back Sunday. So for all the folks here who just can't stand it during the middle of the winter,
down
they get their Florida fix, and you can fly. I'm telling you, it's just this tiny little strip down the street that free parking, everything. And
man, free parking.
Yeah, flies back and forth to Sanford and to Las Vegas. So those are the 2 flights a week you can fly on Allegiant Airlines.
Oh man, because Sanford, if they fly into Sanford, they're about 30 minutes away from the beach.
Yeah, which is not bad. And I grew up a little bit north of there, right in Valdosta, Georgia. I'm sure you're familiar with them, right over the border.
Right. Yeah, I'm not good with winter.
Nice. Well, keep me in your Rolodex. And,
absolutely.
If you need any more information, don't feel free to.
Let me ask you one extra question is because not a customer, but somebody we work with asked a question and he wanted to know really what's the importance of the supply chain in the aviation industry. What are your thoughts? Obviously, that's a big, broad question, but why is it so important to actually streamline it and make it efficient?
I think you have to bring consistency to the importance of the supply chain is consistent and being deliberate. So I think from my standpoint, when a customer orders something and they know, and we tell them they're going to get it with between this hour and this hour, and there might be a 3-hour difference between there, and we get it to them on that time when we promised them, that's supply chain working appropriately. Also making sure that when they need that part, the part is on the shelf. If the part's on the shelf, that means we got the supply chain right.
Right. And
so either if it's on the shelf, we got it right, and if it's not on the shelf, we're able to get it to them in the time we promised. That means we have visibility from when the order is done till it gets in the customer's hands. And if you have visibility of that whole piece, then you're able to make those promises and keep them.
Right.
If you don't have control of that whole piece of the supply chain, you can't keep your promises, and then you really don't have a supply chain. You just have a fragmented system that occasionally works out.
Right, and the customers fail. Well, in your situation, the retail centers, you fail.
Yes. So I am lucky enough to have transportation professionals work for me. And the supply chain folks work for me, the analysis chain. So we can see where the bottlenecks are, and before our system makes a promise to a customer, we know what we're saying. Because the worst thing as an officer or military, if you give your word and say it's going to be there, and then it's not there, and you got some guy sitting on an aircraft strip down in Africa, and we promised him that you was going to get him their part on this day, and we don't even get it to UPS on time. Well,
that's terrible.
On us, because UPS and FedEx and all those guys, DHL, usually don't let us down.
Right, because you know the transit times too, from where you're going to where your bases are. You know how long it's going to take them to fly there, or they might have an additional added level of service for the United States Air Force. So I'm sure they might get it there a little bit quicker depending on the routes that they're flying.
Maybe, you hope.
That was Ryan. What a cool guy. He couldn't get on video, so at least we got the audio section. So what we learned really from his experience, from leading a huge team to from supply chain and the analysts and the procurement, is really you need to lead by coaching. You need to be engaged with who you're leading. You don't lead by muscle. You don't lead by forcing people to do things. You lead by coaching and working together to solve problems. And we also learned that really the whole entire supply chain is about efficiency. It's about getting everything situated, getting everything organized, and having that streamline from point A to point B. In the commercial side, it's a little bit different because, as I mentioned in the videos, we can't focus on stocking and spending billions of dollars in inventory. But what we can take is, how do we shorten the cycle in our supply chain? How do we make it more efficient? And it's not all about cost reduction for the direct cost. It's about making it efficient. So we really appreciate Ryan taking his time, and hopefully this video was of value. You can find Ryan on LinkedIn. Just Google his name with LinkedIn, and it's Ryan, Ryan, and his last name is Coyne, Coyne. All right, guys. Cheers.